What's up, people? So I was just going around on YouTube, and then I saw this video right here. This video says, YouTubers, people who recorded their last moments. So we're about to react to this video. I think I've done YouTubers who record their last moments, but I've never done just people who record their last moments. So we're about to react to this. Let's go. Let's go.
Ivan Lester McGuire was a 35-year-old skydiving expert who lived in the small town of Franklinton, North Carolina. He worked as a skydiving cameraman at the now-defunct Franklin County Sports Parachute Center, where his job was to capture photos and videos of clients who wanted their skydive jumps recorded. He'd been doing this every day for years, and April 2nd, 1988 was no different. Unfortunately, what began as just another routine workday would end in a sudden, irreversible tragedy. The day began smoothly, with Ivan successfully completing 2 dives by late afternoon. But it was an unusually busy Saturday, and before the sun could set, he was called in for a 3rd jump. He was already exhausted by this point, but didn't want fatigue to get in the way of his job, so he agreed to the dive. The plane took off from the runway located right next to the sports center, and within just 15 minutes it was soaring 10,500 feet in the air. After reaching this desired altitude, Ivan jumped first, making sure to keep his helmet-mounted camera pointed towards the client and their accompanying skydiving instructor. What you're looking at right now is a part of the footage that he captured. A few seconds after the jump, the other instructor opened his parachute, which was Ivan's cue to open his own. But when he reached for his ripcord, it wasn't there. Panic set in as he frantically disregarded getting a good shot and searched his body for the ripcord, hoping it was just stuck somewhere. And that's when he made the horrifying discovery. He wasn't wearing a parachute at all. And since the other instructor had already opened his parachute, he couldn't help Ivan in any way either.
Okay, I'm already pausing. I know, I'm sorry, but how do you go to skydive, right? So you're going to skydive, okay? You're going to skydive. Hold on. You're going to skydive, right? And you make sure you have a parachute on. So you jump, but instead of jumping with your parachute, you're like, okay, I got my parachute ready, right? And you just jump without your parachute. That makes no sense. Who forgets their parachute, dude? Like, why is it? That makes no sense, but whatever. I don't know how that even happens, but okay.
After realizing his situation, the only words that came out of Ivan's mouth were, "Oh my god, no." The footage then became blurry as Ivan sped up to 150 miles per hour, or over 240 kilometers per hour. He crash-landed in a wooded area near the runway and likely passed away the instant he hit the ground. When rescue workers found his body, his camera equipment and the VHS tape he was recording on were broken into multiple pieces. Fortunately, investigators were able to splice together enough working sections to get a good picture of what happened before he jumped. They were able to rule out both foul play and the possibility that Ivan had intentionally chosen not to wear a parachute. But if that's the case, how could a seasoned expert with over 800 successful skydives under his belt simply forget to put on his parachute? Unfortunately, none of the evidence the investigators were able to gather answered this question. But given his circumstances, a few popular theories have emerged that offer possible explanations for what might have gone wrong. The first of which is that this incident was the result of nothing more than ill-fated complacency. As I mentioned earlier, Ivan had already completed 2 jumps that day and was exhausted before getting on the plane for the 3rd time. Maybe he assumed he was completely geared up, when in reality he was missing the most crucial piece of equipment. However, if he wasn't wearing anything on his shoulders, someone around him would have almost certainly noticed before the jump. Which brings us to the second and more likely possibility. The incident happened because of his camera equipment. You see, unlike today where a tiny action cam is all it takes to film a skydive, back in the 1980s, recording that footage required bulky camera gear that had to be worn in a backpack. There's a chance Ivan and the others around him mistook this camera bag for the parachute and didn't realize the truth until it was too late. That said, while Ivan wasn't fortunate enough to survive, the footage of his accident stands as a sobering reminder for skydivers to always double, even triple check their gear.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I'm trying to come back to this channel, by the way. I've been like posting every week or two, so I'm coming
On the 15th of January 2023, Yeti Airlines Flight 691 took off from Kathmandu's Triphuvan International Airport at around 10:30 a.m. It was a domestic flight headed for the Pokhara International Airport, located roughly 124 miles or 200 kilometers west of the takeoff location. Things started off just as everyone hoped, with the plane taking off, climbing, cruising, and even descending without any issues. And as it was about to land at the Pokhara airport, one of the passengers started live streaming on Facebook from within the cabin. This passenger was a 25-year-old Indian man named Sanu Jaiswal. He was an adventurous young man who loved nothing more than exploring new places with his friends and experiencing their beauty firsthand. This time he had traveled to Nepal as a tourist with 3 of his close friends, and after enjoying Kathmandu to its fullest, the 4 of them were headed to Pokhara to experience paragliding. He was excited for the upcoming adventure and wanted to share this moment with his entire social circle, which is why he started streaming. What none of his viewers knew, however, was that this was going to be the last time they would see Sanu alive. Because just a minute after he started streaming, the situation took a terrifying turn as the camera became disoriented and the laughter turned to screaming. What followed was an extremely loud explosion. Somehow the phone stayed intact and continued streaming everything to Sanu's friends and family. But all they could see at this point was nothing short of horrific, with the entire camera feed getting covered in raging flames, and worst of all, the screaming suddenly coming to a halt. Something had gone horribly wrong, and it wasn't long before people found out exactly what. Flight 691 had somehow crashed into the riverbank a few hundred meters away from the airport. The crash also caused the remaining fuel to ignite. So by the time the rescue workers arrived on the scene, there was nothing left. The crash and the resulting fire had taken the lives of the 4 crew members and the 68 passengers. Sanu was among these casualties.
Crazy, bro. Imagine you're just I'm not trying to pause a lot, but imagine you're just with your friends. Y'all are having a good time. Y'all just got I love to travel. I love to travel. I love the unknown car rides. I know it sounds weird, but I love to do that type of. And bro, imagine you're just on a plane, right? And then you're just laughing with your friends. You think you're just going through a little bit of turbulence. No, they just. Bro, I don't know what I don't know. What if you're actually that family watching that, bro? I know that was hard for the family. Hey, R.I.P. all those people. R.I.P. for real.
Casualties, as he unknowingly recorded his own final moments with no idea of the tragedy that was about to unfold. The only silver lining in this accident was that the plane barely missed the populated area right next to the river, which would have likely doubled if not tripled the losses. As for how things went so horribly wrong when the rest of the flight had been relatively smooth, a months-long investigation concluded that it was mostly due to human error. You see, the flight was originally supposed to land on runway 30, but for some unknown reason the pilot requested to land on the indirect runway 12. Now, the co-pilot Anju Kariwada was under training at the time, so it's possible the pilot requested the alternative route to teach her how to land at an awkward angle. Unfortunately, while the plane was turning, she misinterpreted a command and accidentally switched both engine propellers to the feathered position. This resulted in the engine stalling, the plane losing control, turning over, and crashing into the riverbank. Put simply, a single unfortunate mistake cost the lives of dozens of people and uprooted the lives of hundreds of family members.
Dang, bro, that sucks.
On June 16, 2013, 29-year-old Yevgeny Titov noticed a demolition happening near his work in Lipetsk, Russia. He was on his lunch break and had plenty of time to admire the work being done, so he took out his phone and started recording the demolition. Unfortunately, watching this demolition was about to become the worst decision of his life. Now, I should mention that Yevgeny was being as cautious as he could. He was standing at least twice as far from the building being destroyed as the 2 men in front of him. Yevgeny was also standing off to the side, since given the demolition method, the debris looked like it was going to fall towards the excavator. Tragically, that is not what happened. As the excavator pulled the wall beyond its tipping point, it didn't detach cleanly and rotated mid-air, sending massive bricks and other debris hurling toward Yevgeny. And while the men standing nearby were nearly missed, Yevgeny wasn't so lucky. He was thrown to the ground by flying debris, with the impact leaving him critically wounded while others rushed over to help. Paramedics were called and rushed him to the hospital. Sadly,
That's crazy, bro. Hey, RIP to all these people, bro, and thanks for tuning in for putting me on these people. Dang.